A list of the top 5 noirs. I am deliberately excluding movies from the 1950s and 60s and what came before, so no Hitchcock on this film list. So let's get it started. Number 5, Jackie Brown. Probably Quentin Tarantino's still finest films. A very interesting crime drama set in California with Pam Grier. Based on an Elmore Leonard novel. Can't say too much because the characters are intertwined a certain way with a very interesting central twist. It takes its time to build itself up, but I think a very, very good film. Number 4, Insomnia, the 1997 version. This is the Norwegian original film that the 2002 Nolan film was based on. And unfortunately, because they took it out of Norway, a lot of the plot and characters don't make sense anymore. You really do need to keep it in its Norwegian setting with Stellan Skarsgård in a very peculiar, weird performance. Very unique to what he's trying to do in the film. Not a very graphic film, but very disturbing on many levels, so just keep that in mind. Number 3, Snatch by Guy Ritchie. I know people are going to say immediately, what about Pulp Fiction? Isn't Snatch largely derivative of that? I think the problem with Pulp Fiction is it just gets in its own way, and it's a little too pretentious, where Snatch really just gets to it and puts you in the middle of this weird noir universe with boxers, gangsters, criminals, and all these other weird types. I wish some of the performances went longer. I wish we had more Benicio del Toro. But again, a very good ensemble cast, though arguably Brad Pitt is obviously going to be considered the lead performance. Okay, number 3, Snatch. Number 2, Layer Cake. A very fine, stylistically British noir film. I will have to give a warning. Unlike Snatch, which does have some American actors, you don't have to be British to appreciate Snatch, but with Layer Cake, it is a very definite British film with a lot of stylistic ticks in terms of the slang, the clothing and everything. That's very, very particular to the UK. So if you don't know British cinema, it may be a little hard to get into, but again, still think it's one of the best noirs of recent times. And I know critics aren't supposed to split votes or have ties, but we're going to see with these 2 entries, it's really hard to decide between them. Number 1, Heat by Michael Mann, a very precise, if long, noir set in LA. Features Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, as well as some other really interesting turns by Natalie Portman, Henry Rollins, and a ton of other people. John Voight, Val Kilmer. I mean, I could just list on. Ashley Judd. There's just a huge cast, a lot of performances, a lot being done with sound and music. And ironically, both Heat and the next film, Mulholland Drive, are based on a television series, but one that were never really aired. So Heat is probably a very straightforward noir, but Mulholland Drive is extremely postmodern. There's a very strong dream narrative, very strong, unreliable narration that goes through the whole film. But again, there's so many stylistic and tonal nods to the noir. I do think it fits. It is a very David Lynch film, so unless you're into his work, some of it will be off-putting. But I think especially the music will be very inviting. You will have to see this a couple times because the narrative is fractured to understand the memories of various people. There are a lot of stories that are never truly resolved in the movie, so that may be a little frustrating. But again, it's based on a television series. Obviously, the television show is going to resolve this, but it never got made. And I know people think it was released in 2001, and therefore it is a post-1990s film, but really, technically, it's a 1990s film as well. It just has to do with the, production issues. So yeah, both Heat and Mulholland Drive are probably the best films of the 1990s and also the best noir films of the 1990s. Again, they're going to have very particular stylistic ticks given the directors, but I think overall, the best noirs you're going to find. Some honorable mentions, of course, are Memento, Pulp Fiction, LA Confidential, Devil in a Blue Dress, Blood Simple by the Coen brothers, and a couple more. I think probably No Country for Old Men would also count as a noir. But again, the list is about the best noir. Those are very good instances of the noir and very good films. I think, for instance, Nocturnal Animals, as well as the recent film Parasite, would also probably fit the noir. And I think will be considered some of the best noirs in the future, but they're too early, so they're too recent, so we don't know yet if they're going to really stand up.